Hello, everybody. Zongetsu134 here.
And as always, I'm your other host, Average Joe Squad.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Hyphen, the show where we look at comic books, movies, and everything in between. And welcome back once again to another episode of this year's Spidey-ness, the show where we just talk about Spider-Man shit because, let's be honest, nothing else is going on this December.
Whether you like it or not, it's all Spidey all month.
Yeah, all month. So, we got another book for you guys, and one we actually meant to get to last year, but we ran out of time to film shit, basically, and...
So we're here to rectify certain inequities.
Yes. Geez. Are they gonna do another fucking reference to these movies? Jesus Christ. We get it, a movie's coming out. So, I don't think anybody really cares, but
When I was a boy.
Oh god, I didn't like that one either. Go back. It's our fucking show, so whatever. So we're doing Spider-Man Life Story, written by Chip Zdarsky with art by
Mark Bagley.
Bagley. Bagel.
I'm sure I butchered his name and I apologize.
This is basically Chip Zdarsky's attempt at doing, there's a story that's like this where it's about a character as they go through like different decades.
Marvels.
Yeah, Marvels, actually.
Yeah, it's his attempt at Marvels.
Yeah, only with just Peter. Basically, what if Spider-Man aged normally? Like, he started in 1962, and he aged up till now. So, basically, what if he were, like, 70 years old? Okay, not that old, but, like, late 50s, early 60s. And so, yeah, this covers a different period of Spider-Man's life, and also follows, like, kind of what was going on in Peter's life at those moments. So yeah, that's more or less the general story. And that's the beats. So, yeah. So what were your thoughts when you bought this? Because I know you got it before me.
Yeah, which is funny because I think I read it after you did.
Yeah.
But, because I bought the trade. I had this pre-ordered.
Yeah, I got this.
And I've had this since it came out, but I just, until like a week ago, finally sat down and read it. So, can you tell I have chronic laziness when it comes to stuff? But, no, I remember hearing about this when it was coming out, and I thought it was an interesting premise, because it's like, how would stuff be different if he were aging normally? So, I mean, it was an interesting premise when I heard about it. I was kind of interested to see how they actually executed it, because, as we both know, sometimes ideas are good on paper, and then the execution is just pretty bad.
Yeah. And to be fair, right up front, this was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. I will admit there's some weird choices made as you go through the book, but honestly, I think it tells a pretty good story. Would you agree?
Yeah, it tells a pretty good story, and it's like someone who knows the Spider-Man mythos and the stuff really well. I enjoyed seeing all the references to stuff in here.
Yeah. Even
down to the variant covers. Which I'm trying to find this one specifically.
But yeah, because there's a lot of really good. I don't know why they made Flash Thompson look like Archie though.
Yeah, which references the splash page of Amazing 15.
Yeah, which is of course Peter going to college for the first time.
Well, no, that's in high school.
Or high school, yeah.
Because he's still in high school in 15.
Yeah, that's right.
But and like I said, there's just a lot of interesting references and stuff. There's different spins on stuff that happens.
Yeah.
For example, like the first part of it, the 60s part, is pretty much Spider-Man canon up to that point. I mean, there's some subtle differences here and there, such as how the
I also like that they have Peter drawn like Romita drew him. With like the hair and just the way he looks. I like that they drew him like I kind of wish that as it progressed, we got to see like the way Peter looked throughout the different eras, because everyone did draw Peter slightly differently.
Yeah, but near the end of the issue is really where it starts to differentiate, like to kind of diverge, basically, because you have Gwen finding out that Peter is Spider-Man,
and sadly Flash Thompson dies in Vietnam,
which I could have seen that one coming, honestly.
They also do
Captain America goes to Vietnam.
Captain America goes to Vietnam. Because this is doing like, Cap woke up during the 60s. It wasn't that like he was woken up now like it is.
The 80s cover.
Oh yeah, It's a good cover.
And then the 90s one is
Yeah,
fucking
which is
McFarlane.
Yeah, it's a reference to Adjectiveless. But like that one was really interesting for me because like not only did he go to Nam, Giant Man and Iron Man both go to Vietnam too. I actually love the fact that like when Iron Man goes to Vietnam, he does like army fatigue colors on his armor, which I'm like, I don't really think you need those colors, Tony. You can just go in and murder people. I don't think the Viet Cong have really anything that's going to stop you.
Yeah, overall, I really, really liked the story because, again, for someone, if you know the mythology and stuff, you're going to spot stuff. You know, you're going to spot what is the same, what is different, how stuff has evolved because of the fact that everyone is aging.
Yeah, like...
You know, I thought it was interesting that Ock and fucking Reed Richards are working together.
Yeah.
Like, reading that, I was like, okay, a weird flex, but I can roll with it.
Because they actually have it that, like, Otto actually fell in love with Aunt May and, like, kind of went legit because of her. I actually like the where they show that, like, Peter starts putting armor pieces onto his suit. Like, I'm getting older and it's harder for me to, like, take hits and stuff, so he starts, like, putting armor pieces.
They reference in here that Sue left Reed for Namor.
Which...
Again, with that shit. Because Peter marries Gwen really, really early on, MJ and Harry are engaged to each other, and when Harry eventually leaves, he leaves everything to Mary Jane. So it's kind of interesting. The biggest like off from like left field kind of hit for me because
it was when they do the Clone Saga.
Yeah, when they did the clones.
Both Clone Sagas.
Yeah, because they have Miles Warren in here, and he works with Gwen, and I was like, oh, I know where this is going. I've seen enough.
Yeah.
And it's basically that it's revealed that, you know, Miles Warren was working for Norman.
Yeah.
You know, and they had cloned Peter as well as Norman. And they also, there was a clone of Gwen.
Yeah.
However, it's revealed near the end of this issue that the clone of Gwen...
married Peter.
Yeah, the actual clone is out there, and it's the one that's married Peter, whereas the real Gwen was in the tank and dies.
Yeah. Which, when the Peter clone wakes up, the Glenn clone goes with him and divorces Peter, which I'm like, damn, girl, that seems really harsh.
Yeah, because Harry has left, you know, him and Peter and MJ end up getting together.
Yeah, which, that shot was really rough, that where, like, Peter's basically just having, like, a mental breakdown. He's like, oh, she gone and I have nothing. And then, you know, Mary Jane consoles him, like, you don't have nothing, you have me. But, like, no, this book gets a little oddly weird in places. Like, I will admit, as much as I like the story, that clone stuff with Gwen was a little...
The stuff with Aunt May was heartbreaking.
Oh, where she has dementia.
She has dementia.
Or the fact that, like, MJ has to give birth while Peter's
off fighting Secret Wars.
Which
was a really cool splash page in there.
Also, at least I like that where, like, him and Reed kind of...
I also love it. This was like my favorite. I was like looking at just all the outfits. I'm like, oh, they actually have Rogue's 80s outfit in there.
Also, I have to wonder which Iron Man this is. Is it that's Rhodey, like it was the original Secret Wars, or is it Tony? Because that's really. It's also interesting because like you get to see like Cap actually age.
Yeah.
And. Oh,
go ahead, because I'm gonna get on a rant.
I was just about to say, like,
I'm gonna rant here in a minute.
And not only was Peter in the Secret Wars, when he gets back, Mary Jane actually has their children, which I know I think this is a bit of a sore point for you, isn't it?
Yeah, because as everyone on the show knows, if you've watched for a while, you know that Mayday Parker is my all-time favorite Spider-Man character of all time. So when I heard, like, in this issue, because I was kind of roughly keeping up with, like, the release, I was seeing the covers and I was reading the summaries. Mm-hmm. You know, nothing spoilerish, but you know, I was kind of keeping up with it. And I heard in the one issue where Mary Jane had twins. So I instantly was like, oh, I got to look this up because is it Mayday?
Mayday and Annie, or is it like
Mayday and Benji? Yeah. You know? And then I looked it up, and it's the twins MJ has in this are named Benjamin and Claire. And the thing that really gets my blood going, I'm going to fast forward just to find the one passage. When Claire grows up, she looks exactly like Mayday, which I'm just like, then why the fuck did you not just use Mayday? I don't understand.
To credit to Chip, I don't think he did it to be spiteful. I think he just wanted to do like something slightly different.
Which I get, but I'm just like...
No, at the same time,
what the fuck is the significance of the name Claire to either of them?
Like I said,
like,
yeah, no, that, like, at the same time, like, I don't understand the point of that. It's also really weird, because when she becomes Spider-Woman, she wears the Jessica Drew outfit from the Ultimate Universe, which I'm like, the fuck is that doing there? But, like I said, there's things that are interesting. And also, like, as a side, I like the fact that, like, Peter actually considers staying permanently bonded with the symbiote because he's like, I'm getting older and I need the edge that the symbiote gives me.
He actually, he's letting Reed take a look at it, and Reed mentions, like, hey, it's a symbiote, it's gonna bond with you, and Peter mentions, he's like, I know, that I'm a scientist, that was the first thing I ran a test on.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm aware, and in this, he takes steps to prepare in case that happens, he gives Mary Jane a sonic weapon, he basically tells her, like, if I get out of control... You need to stop me.
Yeah.
Like, this is the only thing that will stop me. So it's interesting to see that. I really liked that aspect of it because I'm like, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
To me, it was always kind of a weird plot issue with me with the actual Alien Costume Saga.
Yeah.
Once again, owing to the fact that wasn't planned at all. They were running that just on the fly.
Because originally that costume, like, as we've probably mentioned before, that was given to them by a fan. Like, they just wanted to give Peter
they
a cool
bought
costume.
They bought
yeah,
it. They actually bought it off of them.
Yeah.
There's a great one shot in, I can't remember what issue it is, where Tom DeFalco actually wrote a story with that costume.
Yeah.
To finally to finally do a story with it as that guy originally created it, because when he originally created it, that fan had it that it was black and red.
Yeah, which
they changed to black and white, but
well,
it's the same basic design. But with this one, they went back to like the original color scheme and everything. It was a cool like one shot.
And to be fair, I think the reason they went with the black and white wasn't like to be rude to the guy, but like they wanted to explain why it looks so close to Jessica Drew, or not Jessica, the second Spider-Woman's outfit. So they made it look like her, so that Peter created the suit because he was thinking about the suit at the time the costume came over him, basically.
Yeah. But, so there's stuff like that going on. I really enjoyed that. They delve into Kraven's Last Hunt, and I actually kind of like this more than the actual Kraven's Last Hunt.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense, where basically, Peter initially thinks Kraven is fighting him because, Russia and America are at war at this point in the timeline.
Yeah.
And Kraven mentions, he's like, listen, I've lived in America a long time. This is my home. And Kraven mentions, he's like, I'm dying, I have cancer. So that part's retained.
Yeah,
but then he mentions, he's like, I'm still stronger than you. You're growing weaker as you get older. He's like, I don't want to see you waste away to nothing. It's heartbreaking. He's like, you deserve a warrior's death.
Yeah.
Which, it's still, Kraven is still psychotic as hell, but I actually think that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Because like here it's
I could actually see him doing that.
Yeah, like it's like Kraven's like, we're both old men and I don't want us to die because of old age or disease. We should it is more interesting just because in fact, I want to say in this he actually shoots Peter, but because of the symbiote, he doesn't actually die. It just knocks him out.
Yeah, and so they go through the whole he gets buried alive thing, and the interesting thing is that the symbiote actually breaks out of where it was contained and it goes into the grave and bonds to him to get him out, because whereas in the original story.
Yeah, that was
like Peter. Peter. Crawls away. He mentions this. He's like, I'm not strong enough to do it.
Yeah, too weak.
But what this does is it basically leads to the creation of Venom, and it leads to Mary Jane having to shoot Peter with the sonic weapon, and which eventually results in her being like, I'm taking the kids and I'm leaving.
Yeah, and it implies that for the better part of a decade and a half, her and him never saw each other, and Peter. More like it actually kind of gives a way to show up Peter becoming unhinged like he was during the early days of the Clone Saga, due to the events of his parents, the robot parents and stuff. Also, for some reason, when they made Peter get older, they gave him the Norman Osborn or the Tony Stark goatee,
which I'm kind of okay with because he was rocking that in the MC2 universe, but it comes off making him look more like Tony in this.
Yeah.
So, and then it leads to, basically, Doc Ock comes back, and he goes back to being evil. And
because I think
he wants to...
has died.
Well, yeah, Aunt May's just had dementia, and she ended up leaving him because he was so wrapped up in hatred and stuff that which they address later on in the book, that she couldn't get him to get past that.
Yeah.
And so it results in Norman. Obviously, Doc Ock is aware of Norman's whole cloning deal that he had going on, and so Ock's thinking like, I haven't accomplished anything with my life. I can get into a new body and I can have another go at it. But the only two surviving clones, or the ones with the DNA, are the clone of Peter and actual Peter. And so it leads into, they fight. Ock reveals that it's like the clone is the actual one, kind of falling right on the mores of
the
Clone Saga. But the twist on this is that near the end, Harry sacrifices himself to save Peter.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is Peter decides, okay, he rolls with the news that Ben is the actual Peter.
Yeah.
But he even mentions, he's like...
I also love how they differentiate him and Ben. They kind of make him look like Kane. Ben look like Kane.
Yeah, but he basically mentions that, that he's like, Peter does it in order to get away from everything. Yeah, he lets Ben take over because he's like, you can have a life now,
Yeah. And
because he goes to meet Norman, and it's revealed that
this shit's hilarious.
Jessica Jones, who has been dating Peter for a while, has been keeping tabs on Norman the whole time because Norman got out of prison because earlier, basically, the change there in this timeline is that Norman, when he got the amnesia, Peter turned him in regardless. Like, he dropped an anonymous tip and got Norman sent to jail. But anyway, further on down the line in the present timeline of now, which is the 1990s.
Which also, I love the fact that he's got the fucking gliders just like...
Yeah, and they're like different designs and stuff.
Yeah, and they're just really hanging from the ceiling.
Like bicycles or something. Yeah. It's revealed that, Peter was keeping tabs on where Norman was at all times, and just in case, trying to have a backup plan. And he actually shows up and basically tells him, I know you doctored these test results for him. I know you're bullshitting.
Yeah, I actually love this Peter because, like, this Peter's a lot smarter in times than the actual Peter Parker sometimes.
Yeah. And so it leads into old Norman and Peter fighting, and eventually old Norman just has a fucking heart attack, and he just ends up dying.
Oh, I also love it. He sends the glider at Peter, and Peter just takes it in his fucking hands and smashes it to pieces. Yeah. Like, could you imagine if, like, Peter back in the Lee Ditko era just had enough of him, took the glider, and just smashed it? This also works really well because we actually see Peter's like, I'm gonna take my life back and I'm gonna like work this out with Mary Jane. Also, for being like in their 40s, Peter and MJ didn't age too bad.
They're pretty spry.
And then of course
this fuckhead
the early
Morlun
2000s
shows up
because this is also technically tied into Spider-Verse, technically. Because I want to say this Peter is supposedly one of the Peters in Spider-Verse, according to Zdarsky. But yeah, at this point, Peter has been living with MJ and their children in Portland, which is again a reference to the Clone Saga. But basically, Morlun shows up looking for totems. Because I guess this is pre-Spider-Verse. Because he's just bopping around looking for totems. It's not like he's killing spiders for that reason. It also references Civil War because I think Tony is the...
Also, that's straight up, that's 9/11. 9/11 happening there because you can tell by the background.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had caught on to that or not. That's clearly 9/11.
Which, it makes sense because that was a pretty important point in... Oh, wait, was was Tony the head of defense in this, or is he the president? I can't remember.
He is... Let me read this.
No, he's the Secretary of Defense. It's referencing the fact that at that point he was...
He's the Secretary of Defense.
Because that actually happened in the comics. But basically... Morlun eventually finds Ben and tries to drain his power and his life force, and he realizes, no, you're not the actual totem, which leads to him starting to rampage around
Yeah, which leads into, they reveal, obviously Ben's death reveals to the world that it's like, Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So Peter has to go back and do an interview with Betty Brant and be like no, like it's just a look-alike, which Tony doesn't buy for a fucking
because Tony, say what you will about Tony Stark, he's not stupid. And basically at this point Civil War is going on as well. And so he's trying to force Peter to join up with the registration side. And so he gets War Machine, I guess Black Widow in a super suit.
Carol.
Jennifer. I don't know who the fuck that is. I guess Iron Fist? Yeah, that's Iron Fist. Which I'm like, which is weird to me because Iron Fist was not a member of the Registration Act. But while this is all going on, Morlun comes to the house and tries to kill Peter's children because they're also technically totems. And also because it'll piss Peter off and Peter will come find him.
Yeah, it leads into an interesting thing that, like, you have this fight going on between the Registration Pro faction and Peter, and then the Democratic response, which shows up.
Which includes Cap and old Luke Cage and old Hawkeye
and Cloak and Dagger.
Because, it wouldn't be a Spider-Man story without Cloak and Dagger showing up.
Yeah, but there's also, like I said, there's an interesting fight between Claire and Benji against Morlun. They actually figure out his weakness is that he's invincible except when he's feeding.
Yeah, so
Benji willingly gets drained by him while Claire just fucking annihilates him.
Yeah.
Which leads to Benji actually gets really screwed up by it.
Yeah, at the end of the issue it implies that Benji died. But what actually happened was it made him have a permanent limp, so he has to walk with a cane. But yeah, that's right. I think that's Miles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because this it also has Miles showing up because I guess Peter mentored Miles briefly after he got his powers in this. And no, it's not the ultimate Miles Morales. This is a Miles Morales that is unique to this universe, basically. If that makes any sense. But basically, there's this big fight, and more or less they force Tony out of his armor, and Captain America,
Well, actually, no, that's Peter.
Oh, that's Peter?
That's Peter. That's Peter in armor. Because Miles didn't show up till last
Yeah, that's right. It just confused me, because, that looks like something Miles would wear. But basically, they stop they end Civil War, and then we cut to, I guess, the 2010s, because Peter is now 60-something, and him and Miles, who's now I guess is going to be his replacement, go up into space to deal with a satellite or space station.
It's a Doom satellite.
Yeah. And they get jumped by Kraven, because before Kraven could kill himself, or I guess killed himself, the symbiote bonded with Kraven, which, admittedly, that's a sick-looking symbiote.
Yeah.
And basically wants to kill Peter, just because. And during all this, eventually Venom gets a hold of Miles and says some weird stuff, where it's revealed that the entire time, it's not been Miles Morales.
It's actually been
Doc Ock, as a homage to fucking Superior Spider-Man, which, admittedly, I kind of like this a little bit more than the actual Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah, and it leads into a dreamscape thing where all the versions of Spider-Man we had seen up to this point fight all these different villains.
Yeah, because it's implied that through this Ock's trying to take over Peter's body.
Yeah, and the only thing that stops Otto is this image of Aunt May talking to him.
Yeah. Which makes him stop, and you get this really sweet moment where Peter talks to this Aunt May vision, and he's like, "I know you're not real," or something like that. And basically, she convinces him to keep going. It wakes him up, and basically he takes Miles' body to an escape pod, and he basically says, Otto, I need you to promise me to give Miles his body back. And he tries to, because the space station's going to fall, it's going to kill everyone. And Peter needs to hold the space station together long enough so that it explodes in space. And just when it looks like things are going to go bad, the symbiote holds the ship together as if the symbiote's one last act of kindness, which is also kind of a reference to
how it saves him.
How it saves him.
That issue of Web of Spider-Man where he gets the suit off of him.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is the end of this Peter Parker. But Otto was a man of his word. He gives Miles his body back, and he has this moment with MJ talking about how Peter's gone, but MJ gives him more or less the classic Spider-Man costume, and it ends with this really interesting, because the issue opens with this thing where Peter's talking to MJ where he's like, I keep having this dream, where it goes back basically to the burglar getting away.
That's also very clearly a design based on the Raimi film, with how they draw the burglar.
I like it at the end because the end, it shows this burglar getting away and Spider-Man's walking, and he's like, don't worry, the dream had a good ending. I think it's implying that that's actually Miles stopping a burglar and doing the thing that Peter could never do. Like, I know a lot of people thinking that's Peter in heaven finally getting... I think that's actually supposed to imply that that's Miles as Spider-Man stopping a burglar because he knows that would be what Peter would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, I really like this story. It has some weird hiccups to it. But as a whole, I think it's a very well done story.
Yeah. My biggest gripe with it was, at times, it really felt like they were trying to get way too much in.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, when you have a character whose mythos are just as large and expansive as Spider-Man's is, I can kind of understand how, like, they were trying to fit so much stuff in because you're trying to make it logically make sense. You want to have all this stuff because there's a lot of important stuff that's happened, and trying to cohesively fit that into a singular timeline is a hard thing.
I also think some of the choices were a little weird. Like, I honestly... I really don't care for the real Gwen died in a tube thing.
Yeah, I don't. That was a little out of left field, as I mentioned. I wasn't really a fan of that.
That, and like you said, I don't understand the need to make the daughter Claire. Like, I guess maybe Chip Zdarsky's like, well, no, this is my universe, and I want to do my thing. Which if that was the case,
I get, but
but at the
really
same
going to
time,
see her anywhere else?
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, he still named the boy Ben. Like, if you're gonna really completely change it, do both.
Yeah.
Like, I get, because I get it. If Peter were to have a son, he would name them Ben. Just don't do it. Like, otherwise, it's really weird. I will admit, I do think he does certain stories a little bit better than the actual story. Like, I actually kind of like the way he did the Clone Saga.
I like the way he did Kraven's Last Hunt because
it
I think it has a little more depth to it.
Yeah.
Other than just, I've gotten my ass beat by Spider-Man so many fucking times, I need to prove I'm better than him.
And then just blow my fucking brains.
Yeah, like, this makes a lot more sense, and I actually kind of like it, because it's... Again, the ideology is warped because it's in Kraven's twisted sense, but at the same time, it actually makes sense.
Yeah, and I could believe Kraven would be like...
Thinking he's doing the right thing.
Like, even like having Kraven being like, even if it's not like Peter's age that much, like, I could see a story where it's just... Kraven has gotten old, and he's just like, I need to, like, I'm getting old and I'm dying of, like, cancer. It's like, I need to finally beat you, or else I have nothing. I actually think they do some, like, I like that. It was kind of interesting when Miles showed up, because I was just like, oh.
Yeah, he's almost like in the last little part, as almost like an afterthought, it seems like.
But I do like the way they kind of try to show him becoming the next Spider-Man. So I think it still works really well, despite
not having a whole lot of depth / a lot of content devoted to it.
Yeah. If I were to also change anything, I also probably wouldn't have just had Peter and MJ spend like a decade apart, where literally Ben and Claire literally live without their father for like a decade. I'm like, that seems a little rough. Like, I would have probably maybe said, like, they were separated for, like, 5 years max. Just because, like, it seems kind of cruel to just have Peter completely lose her. I mean, granted, it's justified, but, like, at the same time, it's like...
It's also realistic.
Yeah. It's just weird, because, like, then it's also, like, he was also dating someone, so, like... Of course, that goes nowhere. Also would have been at least interesting to see what Luke Cage had to say with, Peter dating his technical the woman who had his child.
Because I don't think that happened.
Yeah, I'm assuming Luke and Jessica didn't have a child, but no, like I said, I liked it for as a whole. Like weird hiccups aside,
yeah, there was a lot of weird hiccups, and at times it very much felt like they were trying to put too much content into it, like trying to cram it.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to read the Fantastic Four version of this because there's a Fantastic Four life story that's coming out right now.
Yeah.
Just to kind of compare, but I actually had talked with Jared about this, that reading this kind of convinced me that it's like some characters, like doing that progressive age thing, just it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like with having all the events happen.
Yeah.
As it just doesn't work for me.
So you don't think this worked?
Yes and no.
Yes and
like
no.
parts of it did, parts of it didn't.
That's fair. I guess for me it worked definitely. I just think that they, like you said, there was a lot
They missed
of
the landing on a couple things.
Well, like, like they literally had to be like, and then Secret Wars happened, and it's just like, okay, I would have liked to have seen some of it. You didn't have to show all of it, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more than just a splash page of them fighting. But no, I do get what your point is. Because certain characters, this would be really weird. Because imagine if they did this with Batman, where like he aged from like the 40s. They would have to like have him die.
Well, they did. Remember Kingdom Come?
Well, yeah, but we didn't.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, although I guess if they were to do it, I would have them start at like the Denny O'Neil run, which would be like the 70s. Just because like otherwise you're gonna have to have Batman die like halfway through. Of course, again, that could be how they explain Dick taking it up in Battle for the Cow. But
they would, you know how they would do it. If we get to the 70s, he accidentally falls in a Lazarus pit. You know, that's how they would do it.
Actually, yeah, that would be how they would do it.
Because then it would make sense.
I guess, what other characters would you like to see in this, other than like Batman, what I just brought up?
I thought you were going to say, what characters would you have liked to have seen in this? And I was
I
was giving you that deadpan look.
I was,
no discussion.
No, I meant, like, what other characters would you like to see get, like, a life story treatment? The X-Men would actually probably be pretty interesting as a life story.
Yeah, they kind of have already done that. They did that whole grand design thing that was like 2 volumes worth trying to explain everything.
Yeah, I guess
I still need to pick up.
Because that would be interesting because you could do it like, say, like, you have different X-Men teams and it's just from Charles Xavier's point of view.
Maybe Bruce Banner would be kind of interesting.
That would be
for
interesting.
That.
Yeah.
Or maybe Black Widow. Black Widow dealing with the end of the Cold War would be kind of interesting, intriguing to see.
I think Iron Man would be kind of interesting just because like you could see him like going through like different technology. Oh God, that'd be rough. That'd be rough because like it would be you would have him in World War II, then he would wake up in the 60s when Avengers number or whatever was. So like it'd be like I was on. There's like 2 decades I missed. I didn't even get to see the Big Bopper's death. I love the Big Bopper, Tony. We have his records on vinyl.
He wasn't around doing that.
I know.
I was like, I was trying to think. I'm like, are you trying to make a joke?
I'm just serious. I'm just going with some character. I don't know.
Bing Crosby or some shit.
I think Daredevil would be kind of fun doing life story. Just because, like, you would have him in, like, that ridiculous fucking yellow outfit. And then, like, in 90s when you'd have that stupid-ass fucking bio armor.
I really think Bruce Banner would probably be the best one to do because you could fit in so much evolving science and stuff.
Yeah.
With that.
And just poor Banner just trying to fucking, like...
Have a life.
Alone. Yeah. Yeah, those are really the only characters I really would like to see. Maybe Superman. But then again, I've seen so many stories where Superman actually ages.
Power Girl, maybe? Or
Power Girl. Supergirl. Ooh, Green Arrow would be fun. Especially because you could, like, have him, like, the jaunty, jovial character, and then you get into, like, the longbow hunters and shit. That'd be really good. Yeah, I think those are really the ones I would suggest. Maybe Hawkeye? Especially because you could, like, have, like, Kate be his successor, but... Yeah, I think those are really the characters I would suggest. Otherwise, your rating?
I'm probably going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. It was enjoyable in parts. I enjoyed a lot more of the front laden stuff in it, more so than the later stuff. I really felt like later on in the book was where they were really throwing so much stuff in it. And I mean, I get where they were coming from. There was a lot of stuff that was going on in the 90s/2000s, but it just felt like they missed the landing on it more so than they did in the earlier parts. Because the earlier parts of the book I felt were really, in my opinion, they were a lot stronger writing wise.
Yeah,
Maybe it's because I'm just so familiar with that content more so than I am with everything from late 90s, early 2000s, especially.
I'd give this a 7. I think it's a fairly solid book. It has some weird, because like you said, they're trying to make this cohesive that it falls apart in places. Like
can't be stopped.
Although it's
self-sustaining.
For me, I think it's pretty solid up until, like you said, up until the end of the 80s. I also think they could have there's stories they could have just not done, and like no one like. Do we really need to see Civil War? Because like it's an afterthought. Like it literally just Civil War's happening.
It's in there for a couple pages.
Yeah, and then Civil War's over.
And they had already kind of set up that the whole stuff with the Inheritors and Morloon was kind of the main focus in the early part of that part of it. So it's like that almost gets pushed to the side,
which is weird
because the Civil War stuff.
And again, it's weird because they're trying to say that this is tied into the Spider-Verse, because they even bring up in the trade, they show that shot of where the two Spider-Men are talking, because supposedly one of those Spider-Men is the Spider-Man from Life Story, which I'm like, that makes no fucking sense. So did Life Story happen with Spider-Verse in the middle and then he just fucking dies? I guess that's what happened. It's like how like the Spider-Man from Renew Your Vows is in Spider-Verse. It's like,
well, no, he's not in Spider-Verse. He's in Spider-Geddon.
Yeah, that's right, Spider-Geddon.
He's in Spider-Geddon. But I actually argue that makes more sense.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because
then to be fair, he wasn't a product of Spider-Verse. He was at least a product of that weird Secret Wars that happened first. But like for me, like it's like, oh, these are happening in Spider-Verse. Promise. Like that just kind of like
guys,
falls.
We like the Spider-Verse animated stuff. We don't like the shit-ass comic by Dan Slott.
Well, then it's like...
We don't need to tie it into that.
Well,
it's
like
not that great.
Like, you know, like, I'm reading this... Sorry. Oh, Brandon, I'm sorry.
That's why I was like, what are
you
doing?
I forgot your... I was eating. I apologize. I just picked it up. But, like, you know, imagine you're reading this, and all of a sudden, like, it reminds you, oh, right, Spider-Verse happened. Like, it doesn't even, like... It doesn't even feel like it matters to the story. Like, you're just reading it, and you're like, oh, yeah, right, Spider-Verse was a thing.
It's almost like an afterthought.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of weird afterthought shit that happens.
Yeah, but, I mean, the artwork was
the artwork is really, really nice.
Again, I like the artwork. I feel like the style works more so with the 60s and 70s stuff, more so than the later 2010s and 2000 stuff. I don't know. Again, maybe it's just because I've seen this era drawn so many different ways, like... But something about it just works.
Like for me, I wish they would have done something where like they kind of try to make it look as the era looked. Like I know with the 60s and the 70s, it wouldn't change that much, but like Spider-Man looked radically different in the 80s. He looked very different in the 90s. You know, like I don't know. It kind of would have been nice to see like that style, like especially because like Morloon is drawn like he was drawn by. Romina Jr. and like he looks so out of place with the rest of the yard because it's just like, and now I'm here and I'm all weird inheritor vampire and I look like shit. I mean, Grant, that's just how Morlun looks because he fucking sucks.
Yeah, because he's dog shit.
One of these days, I want to just do we need to just
review Spider-Verse because I do own it.
Well, not Spider-Verse. We need to like review like the Mystic Totem Spider-Man story where he showed up because even there he fucking is so lame. You want to review the other? I'm gonna have to find my fucking...
I'm just gonna buy the trade, probably.
Yeah, I would
You might have given me those issues.
No, I might have given you those issues, but I don't have every issue of the other. I only have the Amazing issues.
I'll probably end up buying the trade, is what I'll end up doing.
That takes place in Amazing, Spectacular...
Yeah, so I'm gonna end up buying the trade because I'm gonna read all the tie-ins, so it actually makes sense.
Oh, dude, trust me, it's not going to make sense.
It's gonna make more sense than if I just read one series.
Well, I'll talk to you about it afterwards. But like, for me, you know what the worst part of that is? That's when they started doing Friendly Neighborhood, and literally the first issues of Friendly Neighborhood are just tied into the other. Like, how sad is that?
Jesus Christ.
Like, well, it's like how the end of its life period, it's all Civil War tie-ins and Back in Black tie-ins. It's like, why? But that's just the way it goes. You got anything else before we sign off?
No, just like I said, I really like the idea. It's just I felt like it fell apart near the end of it,
Yeah.
which that could just be me being critical, you know. But
You know, I guess for me, like I guess I was more forgiving just of the concept that I like. It had problems, and I can admit that. But like as a whole, I still had a pretty fun ride going through.
it reaffirmed for me just that I really think the 60s and 70s are probably one of the more probably the most interesting period for Spider-Man. I mean, I have a soft spot for the early 90s.
I mean, yeah.
But for me, I mean, the 60s and 70s stuff, I mean, like I had mentioned, like how much I thought the art complemented it, is that I think a lot of it, you know, with kind of looking back on how I was feeling about it, it's almost like the stories work so well no matter what art style they're drawn in.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I agree.
It's like they exist in like this weird plane where it doesn't have to look too realistic. It doesn't have to look too cartoonish, but you can draw them however you want, and it's still the same kind of like quality of life almost.
No, I agree. I definitely agree.
If I'm making, I hope I'm making sense with that, because it's a weird sensation to try to describe.
Yeah. You know, for me, like Spider-Man's one of those evergreen characters that I think. You know, I like things about him from every period, even like the periods where it's at his roughest. But I do think that it does show like the, you know, I think for a lot of people that is the, you know, like when you want to read Spidey is like the 60s and the 70s, even if there are such great characters in there like Mindworm. But I've yeah, there's a good old Big Wheel, and my favorite character, the Rocket Racer.
The Hyphen Hustler.
Yeah. Which is weird because he was an 80s creation. I never understood
why. Disco's
yeah,
dead.
I was like,
what the fuck?
A
little late to the party on that one, guys.
We could go all night if we talked about the Hypno Hustler. But yeah. You can pick this up pretty easily. They only released like, what, 2 or 3 years ago?
I mean, I want to say pre-pandemic.
Yeah, because like it has a
2019.
Yeah, except at the back of it.
I remember when those were coming out.
Because like the back of it's like, hey, Nick Spencer's coming to Spider-Man, and he is long gone. But yeah, like I said, it's easy to find. Maybe we'll do the Fantastic Four one when that comes out, because I wouldn't mind reading that.
Because I don't think it's traded yet.
No.
I'll probably pick it up at some point. I'd like to do those Grand Design ones for X-Men, but those are a little pricey.
Yeah, those would be hard to find.
Well, because they traded them, it's just they're like $40 a pop.
Yeah.
Because they're like thick, basically.
Thick.
Like that would be like a homework assignment to read all of those.
I mean, like The Crossing. We're gonna get to it eventually. But anyway, guys, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. More Spider-Man to come, I think. It's gonna be. What's it?
Perhaps.
It's gonna be really weird because like we're filming so many of these ahead.
Like at the point of this filming, No Way Home is 4 days away.
Yeah. So
I mean, and we're already kind of thinking about doing a video the night prior to that. So who knows what we'll do? Because I assume like maybe Christmas we'll do stuff that night. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Christmas Eve film some shit.
Because we do have we've actually filmed the end of this year's Spider-Man already, so
we're filming all these out of sequence like it's a movie basically.
To be fair, we do that a lot. It's just easier.
It's easier to stockpile
that way. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Look forward to more whenever this comes out. And just enjoy what we've had so far. But until then, guys, I am Zangetsu 134.
And I'm Average Joe Squad.
As always, we ask you.
Remember the hyphen?
And take care.